Joe Brady interviewing for the Jets offensive coordinator position. Quinnen Williams wants a large deal. We're going to break it down for you here on JetCast. What's going on, everybody? I'm your host, Ray from JetCast. This is our guest today. As you know him, the famous Paul Riley, the capologist for JetCast. What's going on, Paul?
Well, we're sort of a cap issue with Leonard Williams, but first I think we're going to discuss Joe Brady raised last week as a potential, my number one choice, I would add, offensive coordinator. But
yeah, so let's break him down. Currently, he's the quarterback coach for the Bills. Very hot name out there. I think a lot of teams are going to be trying to interview him. And, so break us down for him. What would he bring to this team, and what would he be looking to bring to this team if he were to come over here from Buffalo?
Well, first of all, I'm starting to think he will come, and I'll tell you why. Joe Brady football in New Orleans under Sean Payton, he was just a punky little assistant. Then, of course, he led them to the national title that year, calling plays for Joe Brady and Chase and Jefferson. The OC job under Rule in Carolina in 20 and for half of 21 during their break. And he licked his wounds and went back quarterback's coach. Now, he apparently really likes it there from everything you read. But offensive coordinator there, Ken Dorsey, is in this cycle of interviews. He got a line where he played a few days ago. I don't know that he's going to get a head job. He doesn't this year. He'll probably get one next year. So if you're Brady, why do you take the job when you know, A, you're probably a year away from being the offense for Josh Allen and that offense? And particularly if they don't, you're the offensive coordinator who gets them to a Super Bowl. And then your name is 3 years old. He's not a old man at all. He can afford to wait. I would be surprised if his interviews with the Jets. It would not shock me if he stayed right where he is, face for me, for my long-term future. Where if I go to the Jets, I could be one and done, too, on NFL coordinator job.
Well, you see what happened last year with Mike LaFleur. I mean, I personally feel he was in over his head. He's a young guy. Maybe he needs a little more seasoning. I wouldn't be surprised in a couple of years down the line, maybe we're talking about him, if he goes in the right situation, about being an offensive coordinator, potential head coach one day. I just feel he's so young, and Joe Brady's kind of in a similar position where he's never really called those plays at the NFL level and had that success that you're going to be looking for with the offensive coordinator. I want, personally, a coordinator that's had experience in the NFL. I think the experimentation.
Well, he did call the play. He did call the plays for a year and a half in Carolina, though.
Yeah, you're right.
And he got canned there.
Right.
So,
right. So I'm looking for a successful coordinator. At least,
sure.
They have their ups and downs, but I want somebody who, a year and a half of misery to me doesn't, that's not the experience I'm looking for.
Fair point. I just think I pass on the Jets and every other team. I think he's going to stay right where he is because I think he realizes for him.
Right. All right. So that's it with Joe Brady. We're going to move on to our second segment of the day, and that is everything that's going around the internet right now. What kind of contract extension could Quinnen Williams potentially be looking at, and what are the cap ramifications for the Jets going into this offseason? You could find it on multiple different sites. They could be anywhere from $2 million negative to $2 million positive in the cap, which correlates to next to nothing. We already know the Jets, no matter what, they're not going to keep Carl Lawson at where he's at. So they're either going to cut him and save that money, or I could potentially see them shortening that contract down and restructuring him to a one-year deal where they guarantee him maybe $5 or $6 million with incentives this year. I could see a guy like Jordan Whitehead being cut this offseason. Corey Davis, I think, is an absolute cap casualty, especially with our quarterback situation. A lot of Jet fans right now are talking about, well, Quinnen Williams is due $9.5 million this next season, and then you could potentially franchise tag him after this year. My issue is, if you're going to extend Williams now and bump up this year's cap hit to potentially $20 million, where does that leave you in the Derek Carr sweepstakes? If he's going to get $30 to $40 million a year, that could really hamper us filling out the remaining pieces of this roster. Once again, we may be forced to rely on this year's draft class coming in to really support the veterans that we have on this team. What are your thoughts?
Well, that's a good point about that. They're going through friends who, well, not stars, were productive, like Lawson perhaps, and Davis and Whitehead. And they're going to be replaced with cheap young players. Why? Because ultimately you are. He's not going to play on this tag. On the 50-year option. He's certainly going to skip the. What you need, I think, in my view, to do is tell him, listen, we will pay you. We will make you but we have to settle some other things first. We have to figure out who our quarterback is, and then we'll know. He might not like that. He might say, well, I'm the guy who's produced. You're going to make me wait. It's just the real world. To the extent one or two of them are available, are going to fly out off the board in 48 hours. The problem for the Jets is an old Jet. Remember Leonard Williams? Well, when Leonard Williams Giants 3 years ago or 2 years ago, I think that 13 sacks, well, they were $1 million guaranteed contract extension. And if I'm Quinnen Williams, I say that's where I am not taking less than $45 million guaranteed. I'm just not going to do it. And Jets, I mean, what they'll probably do is give him a 5 to 6 year deal, significant signing bonus that they can spread out over those 5 or 6 years, because he is so young, and so I think they have to worry about him leaving the roster before that. See, that's the problem with the bonus. I can say, and you leave after 3 years. Everything in my example, there would be $40 million remaining, all accelerates to the minute you leave. So suddenly you've got a $1 dead cap hit. I don't think the Jets have to worry about that. But what I think they are going to deal with him, and they're going to have to deal with him before training camp starts, but after the league, because then they'll know exactly what they're dealing with from a cap standpoint this year.
Yeah, without a doubt. When we're I keep looking at the contracts and the numbers of what we're going to expect him to get. Now, I pulled up a couple of, the top tier defensive linemen in this league. You got Aaron Donald. He's making $31.5 million, just over that this year. With his cap hit. You got Joey Bosa at $27 million a year, and you got T.J. Watt at $28 million a year. Now, he doesn't. I'm not going to say he produces like Joey Bosa and T.J. Watt does, but he's got to be looking at those numbers, saying, "I'm 25 years old. I deserve, if not right around what those guys are getting." So, if I'm the Jets, from my perspective, I try to extend him this year, but explain to him that we might give you a little more guaranteed money this year, but then take the way you are structuring things. We might give you $20 million next year, $20 million the year after that guaranteed, maybe half the year after that. So you get this year, the next 2.5 years fully guaranteed at 20, 20, and maybe 10. And then you structure it out to be longer, where you don't have to have all those crazy signing bonuses right away. Because once I keep seeing, well, look at what Tyreek Hill got in Miami. A lot of Jet fans fail to realize, what's the one thing that they have that we probably won't have this year? They have a quarterback on a rookie contract, which allows them to have a $31.5 million cap hit next year for a guy like Tyreek Hill. If you're bringing Derek Carr in here, or even Jimmy Garoppolo, two quarterbacks that are expected to get $30+ million probably on the cap going forward, it makes it a lot more difficult. And one thing that we haven't discussed yet was the money that was borrowed from the 2023 season coming up to pay for 2022. You had guys like Lincoln Tomlinson that had an under $10 million cap hit this year because of the needs to sign guys like Brown and bring in those veterans. Now he's got a $17 million base salary going into next year. So Joe Douglas structured that to secure 2022.
Right, and it was both loaded. The tight ends did not have Conklin and Uzoma did not have huge cap, not tremendous, but they're much bigger this year because he backloaded those contracts into this year. You do business in the NFL. It's not easy, moving around the money. And the one thing that he never thought in 2023 he was going to have to add a $20 to $30 million. He presumed he'd had his rookie contract quarterback for this year and next year, and then Wilson busted. So now he's stuck. And the money he was going to spend in other places, a quarterback, and of course, Williams will get his. It's going to be a bit of a tight in reality. They're going to have a lot of young, to your point, a lot of young backups. They have to hit they did last year. And they may have to get some younger free agents just as backups, not names that we're looking at. Oh, he's going to start. No, but he's going to. That's my point.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. And that's why we keep talking about how Douglas hit on this past draft class and the draft class before. The great organizations hit on players every single year because these are the things that they run into. You had it with the Rams for years where they were able to develop guys in the 4th, 5th, and 6th round to help get on those championship teams where they could pay guys like Jalen Ramsey and Aaron Donald and Cooper Kupp and get a guy like Matthew Stafford in here. They were able to do that because of their development. And so Joe Douglas is really going to be put to the test. If he's able to have a draft class like he did a few, these last couple of years, I think we'll be fine. But that's a complete hit or miss. Salah's on the, could potentially be on the chopping block this next season.
He's on death row if they don't win. I agree with you. There's thing off season, and it starts 3 days after the Super Bowl when Derek Carr will be released contract, and so it all flows from that.
Let's get your final thoughts. What do you see the contract looking? Really thinking in your head. Your prediction. What does he get a contract extension? Number one, and number two, what are we looking at? What are we looking at?
Yeah, they'll give him a contract. He's their best player on defense. Number two, they want to send a message to the I think to the NFL that hey, we'll pay our best players. I believe he'll get a 5 to. I think they'll give him a $40 to $50 million bonus to spread out. And I believe the first year will have less salary here, and I believe part of that second year will be guaranteed, and it will be a balloon salary because 24 they after that, and 25 and 26 you're starting to deal with the second contracts for the really good rookie play. That's how I think it'll play out.
Right. All right, well, those are our thoughts, Jets fans. Let us know down below in the comment section. Number one, do you think he will get a contract extension? And number two, please provide us what kind of contract that you think he's going to get in the guaranteed money. We'll be sure to follow up on this, especially if he receives a contract extension. And we'll continue to bring all the news and the updates in regards to the Jets. I want to thank Paul Riley for coming on. As always, it won't be the last time that we see him. As always, go Jets.